Okay, folks, I'm going to call the meeting to order. As required under the Planning Act, a public meeting is being held prior to the committee making a decision on these applications. And for everyone's information here, we live stream the meeting on our YouTube channel, and the recording is available after the meeting. Because meetings are accessible to the public in all of these ways, video or audio recording by members of the public is not permitted in the council chambers. This is to ensure that all attendees and those who come to make a deputation feel at ease. Thank you. All right, to start things off, identify the Committee of Adjustment. We've got Ms. Richardson, Mr. Finn, Mr. Erickson, Ms. Archer, Mr. Strangway, and I'm Mr. Robertson. And staff here, we've got the Director of Development Services, Ms. Berry, Acting Development Supervisor, Ms. Evans, and we've got Planner 2, Mr. Shahid, and Planner 2, Mr. Okawat. We've also got our Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Lahi, and our Recording Secretary, Ms. Crockford. I think I got everyone. All right. Who did we forget? Pardon? No. We won't. Yeah. All right. Now, before I ask for a motion for the, well, before I do any of that, I better go to my comments here. Just for the information of the public and those who are online, the committee will hear comments, gather information, and may ask questions to clarify statements made. The committee may ask and answer questions or redirect questions to the appropriate person. Please note that any information or comments given to the committee during this meeting, they're considered evidence. We will first hear from staff, then the applicant or his or her agent. We will then hear from any person in support of or from those who have questions, concerns, or are opposed to the application. Finally, the applicant or his or her agent will have an opportunity to respond to any of the statements made to the committee. If you wish to speak, and this goes for those here or those online, I would ask that you here raise your hand, and I will recognize you and ask you to come forth to the podium. There is a button on the podium there that lights up red, and which we would appreciate if you turn that on. And we will afford you 10 minutes to make your presentation. No one's ever taken that much time, but we will afford you that much time. And if you find that you just can't possibly get it all in that 10 minutes, then I will ask the committee if they will afford you a couple of more minutes. But I don't think we've ever experienced that situation, so there shouldn't be a problem with that. All right. I'm going to ask, first of all, I'll explain and adopt for the agenda. I'm going to ask for an amended agenda because due to the minutes being added after the agenda was published on the city's website. So I will be asking for an amended. So are there any comments or questions with respect to the amended agenda? Being done, can I get a motion then to put okay, I've got Ms. Richardson and seconded by Mr. Strangway. Any further comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Mr. Finn?
Yes, I've declared an interest with regards to item 412 on the agenda.
All right. Are there any further declarations of pecuniary interest? And I would ask Mr. Finn, when we bring that one forward, that you would remove yourself from the chambers, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. Now, you've all had a chance to look at the minutes. Are there any questions or comments with respect to the minutes from the last meeting? All right, then I need a motion to adopt those minutes as printed. Mr. Finn, and seconded by Mr. Erickson. Any further comments or questions on the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right. All right, moving right along. We're dealing with deferred application, file number D20-2024-092, and this is 26 Hummingbird Lane, Geographic Township of Carden. Mr. Shahid, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I proceed with this application, I must bring to awareness that the public notice requirements was not met. The sign was posted a day late, making it only have been posted 9 total days, whereas the requirement under the Planning Act is 10 days. I recommend we proceed given that the area is a mix of seasonal anyways, and during this month of January, I wouldn't anticipate many owners residing within the area. All other components of the public notice requirements were met, which includes neighbor mailouts. I'll pass it on to you, Mr. Chair, to determine if the committee agrees to proceed.
All right, am I hearing that you're content to proceed?
Correct.
Director Barry, you're content to proceed? Comments, questions? Mr. Strangway?
I would suggest we proceed with it.
I'm not going to ask for a motion, but I'll ask for a show of hands with respect to those that are content with us proceeding. All right, that carries, right? All right. Go ahead, Mr. Shahid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located in the former township of Carden with waterfront onto Canal Lake. The property contains a single detached dwelling, shed, and an above-ground pool that was placed in 2022 and was taken apart in early October 2024. The proposed application seeks to relocate the pool to the front yard. To provide some context for our committee, the application was originally scheduled for an October 2024 hearing, but was delayed or deferred due to concerns from our agencies. To resolve this, the owner explored other locations on the property. At the end, due to septic and water setback requirements, the best and only viable option was to place the pool in the front yard. For more details, feel free to refer to page 4 of the report under consultation summary. Locating accessory structures to the front yard isn't atypical, especially on shoreline residential lots. In this case as well, the pool complies with the required front yard setback, and there's minimal tree cover between the neighboring property as well as from the road. My main concern with the pool being in the front yard was regarding safety and functionality. Situating a pool in the front yard adjacent to the road was a concern. However, this is to be addressed by other municipal applicable bylaw that regulates pools and pool fencing. According to the pool and fence bylaw, a fence must be installed on all sides of the above-ground pool. With the assurance of having this fence installed, I believe the safety concerns of having a pool in the front yard would be addressed. In terms of comments, no comments were received after the writing of the report. And all in all, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions of the planner? All right, being none. Is the applicant here or online? Yes, sir. Do you wish to speak? There you go. In your name, sir.
My name is Michael Tar.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, committee members, and staff. Thank you for taking the time to hear our minor variance application. So when we decided to purchase a pool for extended family's use, we wanted to do it right by applying for a permit, even though a permit is not required for a pool, as it is below 48 inches deep. We received an approved permit in May of 2021. It took almost a year to find a company to install due to the difficulties during COVID. We were contacted by the Building and Planning Department in 2023, advising that the pool did not meet clearance requirements for the septic system's leaching field. We worked with the Building and Planning Department and Septic Department to find a suitable relocation spot for the pool. Unfortunately, we were not able to find a suitable location at the rear yard due to clearance requirements for the septic system and setback for the shoreline. Both the Building and Planning Department and the Septic Department, along with myself, noted that the only suitable location would be the lower front yard. This location is several feet below the road level. It's divided by a retaining wall and is partially covered by trees. The property to our left is a vacant empty lot, and the property to the right is divided by trees, making it out of sight. We also spoke with our neighbor on the right side who had no objections to the relocation to this spot. And we also received approval from Kawartha Conservations to relocate to this area. Our cottage is on a small private dead-end road consisting of only 11 cottages, ours being one of the few towards the end of the road. Based on this, I'm seeking your approval for our minor variance application. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, and we thank you for yours. Are there any questions? You just remain there, sir. There may be a question for you. Are there any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, sir. Very good. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Committee. Okay. Right. Do I have a seconder? Ms. Richardson. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? Your application is approved, sir. Thank you. All right, we're now dealing with file number D20-2024-073, and this is 209 Angeline Street North, former town of Lindsay. And again, Mr. Shahid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, before I proceed with this application, I just want to inform committee of two things. Originally, relief was advertised for the 2 storage containers and the recognition of the shed. However, after working through the application with the applicants and property owners, the shed will be removed from the property as per condition number 2. The second thing is that relief was not advertised for the front yard setback. Although not advertised, the setback was shown on the sketch, and the implications of such a relief is reduced by the removal of that shed. As a result, I believe we can proceed with the application today, but I'll pass it on to you, Mr. Chair, and the committee members to decide.
All right, thank you. And Director Barry?
Apologies, I realized I didn't key my mic at your last question. I'm aware, have evaluated it, and we're fine with proceeding.
Thank you. Committee, any comments or questions? All right, a show of hands as to those willing to proceed. And that carries. All right, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Shahid.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is located in a low-density residential area in the former town of Lindsay. The surrounding neighborhood is primarily residential with built form consisting of single detached dwellings with various accessory structures. The property currently contains a single detached dwelling with an attached garage, 2 storage containers, and a shed. The proposal seeks to recognize the 2 existing storage containers which were placed on the property in 2024. The shed will be removed as part of this application. The storage containers, each measuring at 14.88 square meters, are used for additional enclosed storage space for the tenants residing within the dwelling. By referring to the 2023 aerial imagery of the neighborhood shown both in Appendix B of the report and on the slide, one can see that there really isn't an established uniform building line from the street. The placement of structures on this particular lot is difficult, particularly due to the dwelling and existing vegetation. The family of the owner has indicated that although the storage structures would fit in the rear yard, placing them in the rear yard would be difficult. They would need to remove some trees from the side yard in order to pass the structures through. Similarly, locating them in the side yard itself would also call for the removal of those trees. The property is bordered by vegetation on all sides except along the southern lot line. As a result, the view of the storage containers from public or neighboring views are very limited, as seen on the images shown on the slide. The closest neighboring property to the subject structures is a northern abutting neighbor, which is a vacant lot separated by a dense row of trees and hedges. The only lot with open views to the structures is the southern neighbors, but it should be noted that the structures are located at the north side of the property, at the opposite side from these open view neighbors. No comments were received after the writing of the report. To conclude, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Ms. Archer.
Through you, please, to the planner. Even though the property to the north is vacant, are the owners of that notified of this?
Mr. Shahid?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So regardless of if a property is vacant, it has to be owned by someone, and all owners would receive advertisement for any application.
Anything further from the committee? All right, being none. Is the applicant here or online wishing to speak to the application? Is there anyone here or online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone here or online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Quiet day. Committee, where are we? Mr.
As
Finn?
recommended by staff.
All right, as printed. Do I have a seconder? Ms. Richardson. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. All right, moving right along. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-106, and this is 16 Copper Lane, Geographic Township of Digby. Mr. Shahid, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is situated on the shoreline of Head Lake with access from Copper Lane. The area in which the property is located is predominantly residential, with that being in the form of single detached dwellings. According to data from the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, numerous properties have undergone complete redevelopment here over the past 25 years, while others have experienced very extensive renovations, alterations, and additions since their original construction. The property itself currently contains a single detached dwelling and shed. The application seeks to facilitate the construction of a new one-story dwelling and a screened-in porch. The existing dwelling and shed are to be demolished. An important aspect to note regarding these reliefs is that they maintain existing deficiencies, and no relief is further extending within any non-compliant yard more than what already exists. The lot fabric within this area is irregular, with various shaped lots gaining access through private roads traversing them. The private road runs outside of the eastern side of the subject property, set back distantly from the front lot line of the subject property. The front yard setback, although very minimal, the traveled portion of the road itself is set back distantly from the front lot line of the subject property. Since the front yard setback is being maintained, if you refer to the image on the slide, you can see how far back the existing dwelling is from the road. Although a new dwelling is being constructed in place, this setback is being maintained. And I'm referring to the photo on the top right corner of the slide. Similarly, the water setback, although deficient, is not being brought any further to the shoreline. With the irregular lot configuration, it is difficult to situate any structure while being attentive of both a water setback and front yard setback. Based on aerial imagery, the property is only about 20 meters wide at its most narrow point, which is where the current dwelling is situated. With respect to comments, after the writing of the report, comments were received by both agencies and public members. The Kawartha Region Conservation Authority, or commonly known as the KRCA, stated they have no concerns with the application and that a permit would not be required. The supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems requested for a condition to be placed in order to review a sewage system proposal and conduct a site visit. In terms of public comments, the neighboring property owner to the northwest had environmental concerns, particularly with the water setback of the proposed application. The full letter containing their comments and concerns was shared with our committee members prior to this meeting, and there was also an additional email sent by this public member, which has been printed out and provided to our committee members today. Before addressing their concerns, just want to thank these owners for sharing their concerns and comments and letter with the city. Regarding the water setback, like I previously mentioned, although the dwelling is being replaced, build form is not being brought any closer to the shoreline. Moreover, lot coverage complies, mitigating any concerns with infiltration. And the KRCA also commented on the application. They did not have any concerns with the water setback. The remaining concerns from the letter, although I do appreciate, are not something that can be addressed through this hearing or with this application. And I have spoken to the public member on the phone and have encouraged them to explore other routes to appropriately address their other comments. To conclude, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions of the planner? All right. Is the applicant here or is the applicant online? All right, I'm told the applicant's online.
I'm online.
All right, we don't see you, sir, but we can hear you. So your name is?
Stephen Earl.
All right, go ahead with your presentation.
I really don't have anything to say. I'm just here in case there's some questions that come up. I just want to build a new cottage. The old cottage was built in 1963, and it's time for an upgrade.
Right. Are there any questions of the applicant? All right, being none, thank you, sir.
Okay.
All right, is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application?
Yes, we need to speak.
All right, I'm advised there is someone. And your name, sir?
Yes, my name is Sacha Debled.
All right, please go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to oppose this application. I mean, the cottage as it stands today is having an appropriate footprint. I believe that the bylaws are very specific around the distance between the water line and the cottage itself. And there is a reason why this is done to protect our lakes and to protect the environment. This cottage, along with my property, is just along a very, very shallow and very biodiverse, rich bay. And I believe that putting this cottage so close to the water would actually endanger and degrade the environment in this area. In addition, I would like to voice the fact, as I've said in my letter, that this neighbor, Mr. Earl, has been most uncooperative and inconsiderate with myself, my family, and my guests over the last 3 years, blocking my access and taking all kind of condescending measure to intimidate me and my guests. So I'm extremely concerned by the fact that Mr. Earl is striving to build a large deck closer to my property, immediately facing my property, which is currently monitoring with a camera 24/7, peeking into my kitchen, my living room, and my deck. So yes, I'm extremely concerned by the action of this neighbor.
Right. The audio wasn't the best, but I think we got most of what you said, sir. Are there any questions of the applicant? All right. I'm assuming you have discussed this with the planner, correct?
Correct, yes.
All right. Mr. Shahid, do you have any comments as a result of the gentleman's presentation?
No, Mr. Chair, I don't have any further comments.
All right, thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you
All right.
for hearing me.
All right. Anyone else here or online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none? Committee, where are we? 1, 2. Mr. Strangway.
As recommended by staff.
All right. Do I have a seconder? Ms. Richardson. All right. Any, well, I guess we, any further questions or comments with respect to the motion on the floor? Mr. Strangway.
I'm just wondering if our planner can help us out here. Was there anything mentioned by the gentleman with regard to concerns that was in addition to what we had seen or heard previously? I was having trouble hearing exactly what he said.
Mr. Shade.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the committee member. Generally, it was the same. I couldn't hear the audio perfectly either. The concerns I heard were regarding the water setback, which was already what I discussed with him with his wife over the phone, and what I spoke about during committee. But that was really the only concern regarding placement.
Thank you.
Ms. Richardson, go ahead.
Through you, I thought I heard him say something about his living room and his bedroom. What was that about?
Yes, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, you're just listening, sir. Go ahead, Mr.
Okay.
Shade.
No, I was
No,
just,
excuse me, sir. You're listening. You're at a listening stage right now. We're talking with our planner. Mr. Shade.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So I believe it was something about camera and views. Like the zoning bylaw doesn't speak in regards to like those matters. It really speaks to permitted uses and setbacks, those type of provisions. So that wouldn't be something that we would look under the zoning bylaw. And when I did speak to this public member over the phone and they spoke to me about their various concerns, we had a lengthy conversation. I told them regarding their many concerns that these are not something we would be able to address through committee of adjustment. We'd look at the zoning bylaw and our applicable legislation. Their other concern would have to be addressed through other alternative routes, which they've told me that they are going through those as well.
Fortunately or unfortunately, we live in an age where the virtual is part of our scenario, as is the folks coming in person. We've experienced these difficulties in the past with audio, and I have absolutely no doubt that we're going to experience them again. So we live with what we have. So thank everyone for their patience. All right. I've got a floor. You got a question, Mr. Erickson?
Could I ask the applicant or the planner, the survey on the last page, is that an up-to-date survey? And is it in fact showing the footprint of both the old and new or proposed structure as it will sit?
Mr. Heed, let's go to you first.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't know when this survey was taken. I can take a look at the file, but this was the site plan that was provided by the applicant, and this is the site plan that our building division would refer to when they're processing the building permit to make sure that when they go through the building permit, they would have to do what is called a foundation control certificate. So on that certificate, the setbacks would be shown, and it would have to align with what we're going through in today's committee of adjustment hearing, with what is shown on this site plan.
Are you content with that? All right. Thank you. Any further questions? I've got a motion on the floor. So do you wish to speak to the motion, anyone? All right. None. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? Yeah. You're in favor. All right. Alrighty. Your application is approved, Mr. Earl.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-107. And this is 115 Lakeside Drive, Geographic Township of Somerville. And we go to Ms. Evans.
Thank you. The property is designated waterfront and specific lake policy area 1, 4 Mile Lake, under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan, and is zoned limited service residential or LSR zone under the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw 78-45. The property is on the southeastern shore of 4 Mile Lake and contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1971 and 3 sheds, one of which is to be removed to facilitate the proposal outlined in Condition 3 of the report. The construction of a detached garage is proposed, which will provide additional storage space for seasonal items as well as covered vehicle parking, and the garage will feature a loft storage space. Relief is required from section 18.1.3b of the zoning bylaw, which permits a maximum height for accessory structures of 5 meters, as the proposed height is 7.5 meters. And that additional height is proposed to accommodate the second level storage loft. The proposed garage complies with the minimum front and interior side yard setbacks, and the garage is adjacent to additional or accessory buildings on the neighboring property to the west, which can be seen in the photo on the right here, the gray tent storage structures there. So impacts to neighboring residential uses are not anticipated, and as seen in these photos, between the proposed garage and both the front and interior side lot lines, there are stands of mature vegetation which provide visual screening from the road as well as the abutting property. Just a couple more photos of the same location to give you a sense of the height of these trees. And the height of the trees could result in the garage appearing shorter in comparison because the trees would draw the eye upward, making the height of the garage appear less significant in comparison. After the writing of the report, Kawartha Region Conservation Authority provided comments that they have no concerns and that a permit will not be required from their office, and no other comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies. Comments were received from a neighboring property owner citing concerns regarding the timing of the public notice, the proposed interior side yard setback, the height of the proposed garage, the potential for living space in the garage, the distance from a hydro line, as well as impacts to property value. In response, I can provide that the public notice was issued in compliance with the requirements under the Planning Act. The proposed garage exceeds the minimum interior side yard setback. No living space is proposed in the garage, and required setbacks from hydro will be reviewed as part of the building permit process, which I did confirm with the building division. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. And the concerns that you discussed with the member of the public?
To the chair, yes, I did.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Being none. Is the applicant here or is the applicant online? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Good afternoon. I'm representing the owners.
And your name, sir?
Joe McCool.
All right, go ahead, sir.
I'm just here to answer questions if there are any questions.
All right, fair enough. Are there any questions of the deputant? Looks like it's one of those days. Everyone gets it easy. Yeah, thank you. All right, anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Committee, Ms. Archer.
It's printed.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-108, and this is 32 Aaron Drive, the geographic township of Go ahead, Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No worries. The subject property is located in the former township of Manvers with access from Aaron Drive. The property abuts an unopened road allowance to the west. The property currently contains a one-story single detached dwelling with an attached garage and 2 sheds. The proposal seeks to facilitate the construction of an addition, a new deck, and mudroom. The existing porch will be removed. The existing front yard setback measured from the porch is 13.4 meters. In comparison, the proposed front yard setback from the addition is 13.5 meters, while the front yard setback from the new porch is 12.1 meters. The discrepancy between existing and proposed is minor and does not affect the use of the road for other properties. The property abuts an unopened road allowance to the west and is separated by a row of tall trees that runs along the lot line. Visually, the unopened road allowance is not visible from the subject property, nor can the property be seen from the road allowance. Additionally, as the road allowance is currently unopened, there's no existing streetscape, and I've also confirmed with our Public Works Division that there's no current plan to open or assume this road allowance. Lastly, the proposed impervious surface area rate is a minimal discrepancy. It's just 0.1% from what is permitted. The proposed lot coverage remains compliant, mitigating concerns regarding drainage and increased runoff. After the writing of the report, comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage systems, who requested for a condition to be placed in order to review a sewage system proposal and to conduct a site visit, and there were no further comments. To conclude, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the revised conditions identified. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I do that, Mr. McCool, do you have further? All right, well, your application was approved. You're certainly welcome to remain with us if you wish, so. Are there any questions of the planner? Ms. Richardson.
Through you, I'm just a little confused with Appendix C. There's the 2 yellow areas. I'm presuming one is the existing house, and what is the other one? And where is this expansion supposed to be put? The addition?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, sorry. So the yellow portions that I've highlighted is the new components that are part of this development. So the larger yellow highlight towards the left, that is the addition. And then towards the smaller one, the one that's set back 12.1 meters, is the new front porch. Oh, sorry. And then, yeah, it's kind of hard to see it on the screen, but if you have the report in front of you, it's kind of easier to see. The outline of the house is there as well. It's easier to see on the report than it is on the screen.
Actually, I couldn't see it very well on the report either. So what is the larger yellow again?
That is the addition, the proposed addition. Sorry about that. I should have highlighted or outlined the house. From my PDF view, it was visible, but I guess when it was printed out and put on the slideshow, it wasn't. I'll make sure to do that next time, though. Thank you for bringing that up.
See, that's why I call it a team effort. Are there any further questions of the planner? All right. Is the applicant here? Oh, there. All right. Welcome. And your name, please.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Vanessa Archer from TD Consulting on behalf of the owners. Thank you very much to the planner for your report there, and hopefully that's a little clearer now, but the existing house is there. There's a small garage that's existing on the house. It's going to kind of be a breezeway for future, with the addition being the garage with a second story with a bedroom above. And then the front porch, as noted, as the smaller one there with the 12.1 setback. So if there's any additional questions, I'm here.
All right, and thank you for that. Mr. Finn, go ahead.
Through you, Chair. I wonder if you could just describe the addition a little bit. Looking at the elevation drawings that I have, it appears to have a basement as well as a living area above and the garages. Perhaps you can describe it a bit more for us?
Go ahead, please.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. So again, the addition, the larger box there is going to be a garage with a second story bedroom above the garage.
Oh, I got it. Okay, so
And then
the
there's-
elevation drawing includes the original.
Yeah, and then so the box that's at the back of that yellow one, the bigger box, there's a bigger yellow box, and then there's a smaller yellow box at the back of it. It's just a proposed covered area, like a covered porch as well. So that's why there's kind of the bump out at the back of the garage.
Great, thank you.
Anything further from committee? Being none, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking the time. All right. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application, in support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Mr. Strangway?
As recommended by staff.
All right. Do I have a seconder? Ms. Archer? Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All right. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you. Your application is approved. All right, moving right along. We are now dealing with D20-2024-109. And this is vacant land, St. Luke's Road, Geographic Township of Emily. And Mr. Shahid, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is situated on the southeast intersection of St. Luke's Road and Sturgeon Road. The subject property is currently a vacant corner lot, and access for the vacant lot is to be obtained from St. Luke's Road. The proposal seeks the construction of a new one-story single detached dwelling with attached garage and basement walkout. The need for relief comes from a proposed additional residential unit, or ARU, which is to be located below grade in the basement. To give some locational context, the hamlet in which the property is located in, known as Downeyville, is a mix of agricultural, residential, and commercial retail land uses. The build form is characterized by 1 to 2 story single detached dwellings, some with renovations converting them for commercial use. Based on data collected from the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation, there's no clear time frame of building construction in the area. Properties vary in age from as early as the start of the 1800s. The subject property, being one of the few remaining vacant lots in the area, promotes housing without the need for the creation of a new lot, and the relief needed, being the minimum lot size for an ARU when a lot is privately serviced, heavily relies on the review of the Building and Septic Division. The lot, although not complying with this requirement, is not an outlier in size within the neighborhood context. This can be seen in Appendix A, which I've also included on the slide. Furthermore, an on-site evaluation was conducted where the Building and Septic Division determined, based on their observations, that the property can support the sewage system proposal. And there were no other comments received after the writing of the report. All in all, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the revised conditions identified. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Mr. Strangway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one really quick question, and perhaps through to the planner, Ms. Berry. We see a number of these applications come in because they're less than, 4,000 square feet. In the new rural zoning bylaw, will that be addressed, or will it continue to be 4,000 square feet for these ARUs?
Director Barry?
Sure. Thanks for the question through you, Mr. Chair, to the member. So it's a dimension that's actually lifted out of the official plan. That's where we take the guidance for as a minimum. It's a standard that has been applied for actually a couple of decades, if not longer. And it is a appropriate starting place when there are no other known considerations or factors. So when we get applications for a reduction, we can use as a starting place this minimum, which many of the zoning bylaws, as you're seeing, have incorporated from the OP. And then based on the site and the specific characteristics, the ability to have adequate separation between the water and sewage services, can determine if it's appropriate to come down from that 0.4 hectares, 4,000 square meters. Unless one of my colleagues is checking the rural zoning bylaw here in real time, I would have to just pause our proceedings and double check the minimum. But I can say that the rural zoning bylaw didn't look at new standards over and above those the city tested in 2020 or adopted in 2020 when the ARU provisions were implemented in the first place. But happy to double check that for the rural zoning bylaw.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, and guess what? In literally real time, that's how quickly we act here. My colleagues have just confirmed that it is in fact the same number in the rural zoning bylaw. Okay.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome, sir. And when the time comes, which it will be coming soon, this is a particular policy that we will be looking at in the official plan review, because like with many things, time passes, science evolves, we have new information, and we'd like to reconsider what that minimum could be in the new official plan in the coming years. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, good question, Mr. Strangway, because I believe we discussed that at the last meeting. There was an issue with respect to that as well. So, question. Is the applicant here? Does the applicant, or online? All right. Committee, where are we? Ms. Archer?
As printed.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Finn? Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. Okay, we're dealing with file number D20-2024-110, and this is 18 Daisy Drive, Geographic Township of Somerville. And Ms. Evans, go ahead, please.
Thank you. The property is designated waterfront and specific Lake Policy Area 1, 4 Mile Lake, under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan, and is zoned Limited Service Residential or LSR zone under the Township of Somerville zoning bylaw. The property is located on a peninsula on the southeastern shore of 4 Mile Lake and contains a single detached dwelling in its final stages of construction, 2 sheds, and a tent storage structure. The tent storage structure is to be removed as per condition 3. And I just have a photo of the tent storage structure here, which again is to be removed. The proposal is to construct a detached garage, and relief is needed from Section 5.2C of the zoning bylaw, which requires a minimum front yard setback of 7.5 meters. The proposed setback is 1.3 meters, and the setback is proposed so the garage can maintain required distances from septic, as well as a hydro wire that runs over the property. These photos show the front yard, including a stand of mature vegetation along the front lot line, which provides visual screening as well as a physical buffer. On this air photo here, I've done my best to identify the 2 private roads that are at play here. So the subject property is the last property on Daisy Drive, and then the abutting property just to the east is accessed via Juniper Crescent. So Daisy Drive here is in purple and Juniper is in orange. Based on this, it's unlikely that there would be any vehicle traffic passing the location of the proposed garage, being in the top right corner of the property. So there would be no anticipated impacts to sightlines or traffic flow. Additionally, there are properties along both Daisy Drive and Juniper Crescent which appear to have accessory structures with reduced front yard setbacks. So the proposed garage would be in keeping with existing build form. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application, subject to conditions identified in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the planner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question about the tent storage structure to be removed. Is that something we're asking for? Is that something that the homeowner has suggested that they would do?
Through the chair, the tent storage structure, I believe, is in the location where the garage is going to go, so it would have to be moved somewhere. Let me just pull up the application overview that I did to see if there would be any non-compliance if it wasn't removed. Through the chair. So if the tent storage structure was to remain on the property, we would be going over the maximum number of accessory structures we're allowed to have. So by incorporating that condition to remove the tent storage structure, we're not adding another relief. And the tent storage structure is where the garage is going to be anyway. So that's why I included that condition.
Okay. Just to comment, I find it interesting this time of year when you are out and about, you see all sorts of these tent storage structures, whether people have used them just for winter, for their car or whatever. And I'm wondering, are we consistent or inconsistent in ruling on these tent storage structures? Because they're quite common throughout our community. I just throw that out as a question.
Through the chair, I'm not sure what you mean by ruling on them. Typically, and it's quite frequent that when we have a proposal for a garage, they have a tent storage structure on the property that's serving them temporarily, and that garage is going to replace the storage that the tent storage structure is providing in a more permanent way. So usually they are proposed to be removed because they were never meant to stay forever.
I appreciate that. Thanks for your answer.
And there was no, Ms. Evans, there was no opposition expressed by the applicant? We were moving that to...
Sorry, to the chair. I did reach out to see if they had any thoughts about removing it. I didn't receive a response, but the report was provided to them, which included that condition for it to be removed, and I didn't hear anything that was not part of the plan. So.
All right, thank you. Anything further from committee? All right, is the applicant here or online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Not a lot of interest today. All right, is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? One of those days. Committee, where are we? Mr. Finn?
As recommended.
Do I have a seconder, Mr. Strangway? All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-111, and this is 69 Rose Street, Geographic Township of Fenland. And again, Ms. Evans, go ahead.
The property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan and is zoned limited service residential exception 1 under the Township of Fenland zoning bylaw 12-95. The property is located on the southern shore of Sturgeon Lake and consists of a waterfront lot as well as a back lot on the south side of Rose Street. The back lot contains a detached garage, while the waterfront lot contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1929 and a shed. The proposal is to remove the existing dwelling and construct a new larger dwelling, which will require relief from the following provisions, being section 15.2.1.3b2, which requires a minimum interior side yard setback of 3 meters on one side and 2.3 meters on the other side for a 2-story dwelling. The proposed setbacks are 3.3 meters from the western lot line and 2 meters from the eastern lot line. Section 15.2.1.3d, which requires a minimum rear yard setback of 7.5 meters. The proposed setback is 1.2 meters. And section 15.2.1.3e, which requires a minimum water setback of 15 meters. The proposed setback is 12.1 meters. The existing dwelling is 1 story and is approximately 93 square meters in size. And we're looking at elevations here on the screen now. The proposed dwelling is to be 2 stories and approximately 147 square meters in size. The property owners want the new dwelling to maintain as much as the footprint of the existing dwelling as possible. So expansion beyond the existing footprint is to occur through the construction of a screened porch on the south side of the dwelling, as seen in the rear elevation here, and a veranda on the west side, as seen in the right elevation. These photos show the interior side yard where relief is being sought, and the portion of the proposed dwelling that does not comply with the interior side yard setback is the proposed sunroom, which is a single story, and it's not anticipated that the proposed 2-meter setback will result in massing or privacy issues. The subject property has a really unique lot line configuration due to a municipal shore road allowance that juts into the northern portion of the property and separates the property from the water. The photo on the left was taken looking west towards that shore road allowance. So as a result, this property has 2 rear lot lines, which are both marked in yellow on the image on the right. The first is closer to the water, and then the second is about 7.4 meters further south. So it's closer to the existing dwelling and the proposed location of the new dwelling. And as the rear lot line abuts a shore road allowance and not a residential property, impacts to privacy and massing are not anticipated, and adequate amenity space is to be maintained. These photos show the existing water setback, and both the official plan and the zoning bylaw contain minimum water setback requirements. The proposal is to maintain the existing water setback, so no further encroachment is proposed beyond what exists today. And the proposed water setback really doesn't vary significantly from the water setbacks established by other dwellings on adjacent properties. After the writing of the report, comments were received from the supervisor of Part 8 sewage system stating that they have no concerns with the minor variance as it relates to private on-site sewage disposal. Additionally, Kawartha Region Conservation Authority commented that they have no concerns with the minor variance and that a permit will be required from their office. No other comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Ms. Archer?
Through you, please, to the planner. I noticed on the reserve, the shoreline reserve, looks like there's concrete involved in that from probably the dock. Has the city been advised of that and they're okay with it?
Through the chair, I'm not aware of any conversations that have happened with the city that's really falling outside of the scope of the minor variance here today, but perhaps the owner could shed some light on it.
Further? No. Mr. Finn?
Through you, Chair, looking at Appendix C to your report, The setbacks for the existing dwelling appear to be the same as the proposed. Is the existing dwelling, being a single-story dwelling, compliant with the zoning bylaw?
Through the chair, I believe it would be compliant with the side yard setback because as we grow in stories, the side yard setback increases. However, the rear yard setback and the water setback don't change depending on the number of stories. So no, it would not be compliant.
So you're saying the existing dwelling is compliant in the side yard setback, but by becoming a two-story building, it would not be compliant?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Thank you.
Anything further of the planner? All right, being none, is the applicant here or online? Does the applicant wish to speak to the application? Oh. Your name, sir?
Mr. Chairman, members, my name is John Barkey. I'm with Pro Home Solutions.
All right, go ahead.
And just want to say we're in support of planning's recommendations, and we're available here for any questions.
Are there any questions of the applicant? Looks like everyone's getting an easy day today, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Where are we? Mr. Strangway?
As recommended by staff.
And do I have a seconder? Mr. Finn. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. The application is approved, sir. Where'd you go? Right. All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-112, and this is 9 Sandy Beach Road, Geographic Township of Fenland. Mr. Shahid, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject property is situated on the southwest intersection of Sandy Beach Road and Highway 35. Directly surrounding the subject property is agricultural lands with residences. In the greater surrounding context, the area contains various uses, including commercial retail, motel, and low-density residential. The subject property contains 2 existing storage containers identified as structures A and C in Appendix C. Both the existing structures are used for personal storage, storing items such as a recreational vehicle, car, snowmobiles, trailers, canoes, kayaks, and boats. The proposal is to extend the legal non-conforming use, which is personal storage, through the construction of a storage building, as well as recognize an existing storage structure, which is structure C, shown on Appendix C. The owners have been using the property for personal storage since prior to the zoning bylaw across multiple generations, and they all live within 10 kilometers of the property at multiple different residences. Structure A is an existing storage building in the form of a gambrel roof structure. According to MPAC, Structure A, being the oldest structure on the property, has been existing since 1983, and the owners have indicated that a portion of the structure was removed in April of 2022 due to fire damage. The use of the property for personal storage predates the zoning bylaw that was passed in 1995, and proposed Structure B does not change the existing use of the property for personal storage. So the circulated notice illustrated an exterior side yard setback from Sandy Beach Road of 8 meters for proposed Structure B. After consultation with the property owners, the proposed setback was further distanced to 15 meters. The reason why I believe this is important and beneficial to the application is that with the area being predominantly agricultural, the proposed building aligns with built form massing one would typically see in an agricultural area. As such, the proposed building complies with the setback requirement one would see on an agricultural property and is therefore compatible with the surrounding area. The proposed building is located distantly from Highway 35 and is not directly adjacent to any neighboring structure or building, and no negative impact to traffic or neighboring properties are anticipated, and the property owner has indicated that there's no intention to connect the existing or proposed structures to servicing. In terms of comments, no comments of concern were received after the writing of the report. And to conclude, staff acknowledges the application represents good planning and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the revised conditions identified. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? Ms. Archer?
Through you, please, to the planner. Do we know when Building C was constructed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe I have it here. Just give me 1 second. Through you, Mr. Chair. No, my apologies. I don't know when structure C, the smaller structure, was placed on the property. The property owner, I did speak to him about it. He said it was placed some time ago. I have not noted here the exact time or the exact year, but perhaps you can ask him. He's been at the property for, it's been his parents' property for the longest time, so he'll know when it was placed there, yeah.
All right. Anything further from committee? All right. Is the applicant here or online? Does the applicant wish to speak? Oh. Your finger's being pointed. Who's going to do what? Going to do anything? Your name, sir?
My name is Brad Kordick.
All right. And thank you for coming forward.
Thank you for your time.
Are there any questions of the applicant? Ms. Archer?
Could you tell me, please, when Building C was constructed?
Building C was constructed actually in 1957, but it was on a different piece of property, and our grandfather had moved it up there in about 1992. It had some sentimental value, and he was using it for some additional storage.
Anything further? Yes, Mr. Strangway?
Thank you. Mr. Cordick, has there ever been a residence on the property?
No.
Or has it always just been used for this purpose?
And there's never been a residence. No, just the purpose it's used for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further of the applicant? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for your time.
All right. All right. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? Support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee. Mr. Strangway?
As recommended by staff.
Do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. All right. We're now dealing with file number D20-2024-113, and this is 838 Ramsey Road, Geographic Township, Mariposa. Ms. Evans, go ahead.
Thank you. So just before we move into the evaluation of the application, I just wanted to bring to the attention of the committee that part of our requirements under the Planning Act were not met to the letter for circulating notice. So as part of the requirements, we have the sign that needs to be posted 10 days before the meeting, which would have been January 20th. The email that went out to the property owner notifying them the sign was ready was missed, so the sign was posted on January 22nd. Notice was circulated to surrounding property owners in the mail, and the property owner on this file actually provided that they did receive their notice in the mail on Monday, January 20th, which indicates to me that the mail was successfully received by neighbors as well. So in my opinion, I feel that the requirements for notice have been satisfied and would feel comfortable today moving forward with this application, but I'll turn the matter over to committee.
Director Barry?
Yeah, we agree with the planner's recommendation.
All right, committee, where are we? Any comments or questions with respect to, yes, Mr. Finn?
Do we know whether the notice was posted on the property on the 22nd of January?
Through the chair, yes, we have photographic evidence.
Anything further? All right, show of hands as to those prepared to proceed. All right, that carries. Thank you. All right, Ms. Evans, go ahead.
Thank you. The subject property is designated prime agricultural under the City of Kawartha Lake's official plan and is zoned agricultural under the Township of Mariposa zoning bylaw 94-07. The property is located on the south side of Ramsey Road in an area comprised primarily of larger agricultural lots with some smaller rural residential lots as well. And the property itself contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1967 and a detached garage. The purpose of the application is to construct a detached accessory structure, and relief is required from section 3.1.3.1C, which permits a maximum lot coverage for accessory structures of 10% of the lot area to a maximum of 150 square meters. The proposed lot coverage here is 195 square meters, or 3% of the lot area. Relief is also required from section 3.1.3.2, which permits a maximum height for accessory structures of 5 meters, and the proposed height here is 5.9 meters. The new building is to be used to store the property owner's belongings, including property maintenance equipment, gardening tools, and a camper trailer. A 4.3 meter tall door is required to accommodate the trailer, and the proposed building height of 5.9 meters is required for the mechanics that would operate that door. The proposed location of the new structure is marked with orange cones in the photo on the left. While the total lot coverage for accessory structures exceeds 150 square meters by 45 square meters, the portion of the lot covered by accessory structures is only 3%. So just for comparative purposes, other rural zoning bylaws regulate lot coverage using only a percentage, usually ranging from 8 to 10%. As seen in the air photos, the property is in an area that contains larger lots and agricultural uses, which include larger agricultural buildings. So the proposed accessory structure would be in keeping with the existing built form. And while the property is a rural residential lot, it's surrounded by farm fields, which make the property appear larger because it's not completely clear where one property ends and the other begins. So that ensures that the accessory structures don't result in the property appearing crowded or overbuilt. The proposed garage exceeds the minimum front and interior side yard setbacks, and the structure would abut a farm field that doesn't contain any buildings or structures, so the increased height is not anticipated to impact surrounding properties. And in terms of the surrounding area, it consists predominantly of agricultural uses, and taller agricultural buildings are anticipated and exist in this area, as seen on the right, which is just the neighboring property to the west. The increased height of the subject structure would not be out of character with the surrounding area, and it is going to be accessory to the residential use and is not anticipated to impact the overall character of the property. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application, subject to the conditions identified in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Questions to the planner? All right, being none. Is the applicant here? Yes. Do you wish to speak to it, ma'am? Let's try. Are there any questions of the applicant? Your lucky day. All right. Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? Support of the application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Opposition to the application? I'm invited.
As printed.
Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? All those in favor? And that carries. All right, we're now dealing with file number D20-2024-114 and D03-2024-072. And this is 88 Pottinger Street, former town of Lindsay. Ms. Evans, go ahead.
Thank you. The property is designated urban settlement area under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and residential under the Lindsay secondary plan. It's zoned residential 1 under the Town of Lindsay zoning bylaw 2000-75. The property is located in the northern central portion of the Town of Lindsay in an area where the lot pattern consists of deep rectangular lots with more narrow frontages. The property itself contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1946 and a detached garage. The detached garage is to be demolished as per the third proposed condition of provisional consent. The proposal is to sever the property to create one new residential lot to contain a future single detached dwelling, and relief is required through the minor variance process to permit the retained and severed lot to have less frontage than required under the zoning bylaw. Section 6.2b requires a minimum lot frontage of 15 meters, and the proposed frontages are 12.8 meters for the severed lot and 14 meters for the retained. Under the provincial planning statement, Lindsay is classified as a settlement area, and the PPS states that settlement areas shall be the focus of growth and development, and that planning authorities shall support general intensification and redevelopment to support the achievement of complete communities, including by planning for a range and mix of housing types. The proposal is consistent with the applicable policies of the PPS. As per the city's municipal housing pledge, the province has established a housing target in the city of Kawartha Lakes of 6,500 new housing units by 2031, and the city is committed to work to achieve this target locally. So through the severance of the property and the construction of a new dwelling, this proposal can contribute to meeting the city's housing target. Additionally, as per the City of Kawartha Lakes strategic plan, one of the city's goals is to encourage intensification. Looking to the secondary plan, the property is designated residential, which permits a variety of dwelling types. This proposal would be considered low density, where the minimum density is 15 dwelling units per net hectare and the maximum is 25. The resulting density is approximately 9 units per net hectare, bringing it into closer conformity with the density targets for Lindsay through gentle intensification. The dwelling can be seen in the photo on the left, and the location of the proposed lot is on the right. So the minimum lot area within the R1 zone is 450 square meters. The proposed area of the severed lot is to be 1,048 square meters, and the proposed area of the retained lot is to be 1,147 square meters, so both exceeding that minimum. The proposal complies with minimum parking requirements, and it appears that the proposed lot is wide enough for a future dwelling to be able to comply with a minimum interior side yard setback of 1.2 meters. Both the severed and retained lots are approximately 81 meters deep, so sufficient amenity space will still be available in the rear yard, and both lots comply with the maximum lot coverage provision. Looking at the lot fabric here, the proposed severed lot is in the center with the green star. The surrounding lot area contains lots with varying amounts of frontage, so the proposal is in keeping with the existing lot fabric. No comments of concern were raised by any of the circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff respectfully recommends approval of the minor variance as the application meets the test set out in Section 45(1) of the Planning Act, and the consent as the application represents good planning and is in accordance with Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the planner? Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Evans, the only, looking at the diagram that you have up there with the star, I noticed the neighboring properties on that side of the street all seem to have the same size lot. Is there any concern that this is kind of changing the fabric of the neighborhood as far as dividing this lot in half?
Through the chair, I don't have any concerns with the proposal changing the character of the neighborhood. When I'm looking at the neighborhood, I'm not only looking at the abutting lots right next to it or a couple lots down. I'm looking at kind of the neighborhood as a whole here. So when we're looking at perhaps lots across the road, they have a bit more narrow frontages. We have a few more uniquely shaped lots with less frontage here, as well as smaller lots in this area as well. So I would say overall, there's really not one consistent type of lot or type of lot frontage here. So reducing the frontage to create this new lot, I don't think would be out of character.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Well said.
Through the chair, just following up on that, if we look at Appendix B, the residence is adjacent to the property on lots which appear to be very similar to the subject lot. There appear to be residences that their frontage takes up the entire lot. Whereas on the subject property, the picture you showed a smaller bungalow. When you talk about whether it's consistent in the neighborhood, it doesn't appear to me that a 12.8 meter lot is consistent with the types of dwellings we see in this particular area. And I take it that those lots to the east and west are the same size as the existing lot?
Through the chair, I think my response would be quite similar, is that there's really not one type of dwelling that we can see in this area. The lots directly abutting, I think the point was made that they are a wider, less deep house perhaps. But there is definitely a mix of dwelling types, in particular this area here. I can see some more perhaps longer and narrower housing typology. So I think, again, when we're looking at the neighborhood as a whole and what we would use to kind of examine neighborhood character, we're looking beyond just adjacent properties. And again, there's not one type of housing typology that can be found here. So I think in terms of neighborhood character, having a house that's smaller, more narrow, would not be out of character. And I would also say that perhaps a smaller house on a smaller lot could be more attainable, more affordable for someone.
Just to follow up, looking at your Appendix A, can you point out any lot on that plan that has a frontage of 12.8 meters?
Through the chair, I don't have surveys available of the lots in the area, so I don't know all the frontages on the lot. I'm not in any way claiming that anyone has a frontage of 12.8 meters, but I don't think that's necessarily something that is a requirement for this to pass the 4 tests of a minor variance, because we're looking at kind of neighborhood character of a whole, whether this lot could support a future dwelling in compliance with the zoning bylaw, and I feel that it could.
And then finally, was this lot part of a plan of subdivision?
Through the chair, if you'll just give me one moment. Through the chair, thank you for your patience there. Yes, it is on a plan of subdivision.
Thank you.
Anything further of the planner? Ms. Archer.
Through you, please, to the planner, which I maybe should, I'm not sure if the applicant is here or not, but is it do you know if it's the intent of the applicant to leave the mature trees along the lot line?
Through the chair, I haven't been told one way or the other, but perhaps they are here, and I can speak to that a little more.
We'll call you, sir, when we want you. Thank you. All right, maybe hold that thought and when the applicant comes up. Anything further of the planner? Yes, Mr.
Just further to Mr. Finn's questions and mine, how much does it mean that our provincial government has come forward and said they're looking for building houses, they're looking for intensification and so on? Is that part of the deciding factor in looking at this severance?
Through the chair, it's a common expression to say that municipalities are creatures of the province and that we do have to align our policies with the province. But I wouldn't say that these provincial, perhaps newer provincial pushes for housing change my opinion on this severance. I still think provincial pushes for housing or not, this meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I think this consent is appropriate.
Thank you.
Mr. Harris?
Would the planner say that this sets a precedent for the redevelopment of that side of the street? And could this be used as evidence for other streets in the area that this, if it's approved, could lead to the redevelopment of other streets?
I would answer that no decision here sets precedent. Every case is judged on its own merits, but however, I'll let the planner go.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I'll echo what you say. Every application that comes to the Committee of Adjustment is evaluated based on its own merits. To the point that Member Finn brought up, there are different housing types in this area. Some are wider and take up most of the width of the lot. So in terms of perhaps desire to do this to sever the property, you would end up demolishing the house, which might not be a desirable option. Whereas in this case, the existing dwelling is more narrow and is definitely set off to the side of the lot. So the width of the lot, but also the size of the lot, the depth of it, and the square meters that we're still maintaining through this severance, I think perhaps in this case, that's what we're evaluating and on, but no, we don't set precedences here at Committee of Adjustment.
Anything further from committee? All right, being none. Do you wish to speak to it, sir? Just push the button there and you'll get a red light, hopefully. Good. Your name is, sir?
Thank you very much. It's Robert Nagel. I'm one of the applicants.
Please go ahead.
I just wanted to address the question with respect to the mature trees, and it certainly is our desire to maintain the trees on the property, and I think based on their location that they won't be affected by the construction of another dwelling on the severed property. That the mature trees are fairly close to the street and on the edges of the lot lines. So I think we're in good shape there.
Do you wish to say anything further to it, sir?
No, I just want to address that question, and thank you for considering our application.
Just hold on and we'll see if there's any further questions of you. Are there any further questions of the applicant? Mr. Strzok?
Yes, Mr. Nagel, is it your plan to build on the lot or put the lot up for sale, or what do you see as the future for this lot?
Thank you. At this point, we're not 100% sure, but the beauty of it is the house that's on that existing house that's there right now, it's now occupied by one of our daughters who's teaching at LCBI. And so she's probably going to be in that dwelling a long time. My wife and I live around the corner on Adelaide in a house that was an addition for 4 kids. Eventually, we're not going to need that. So it's very much a consideration for us to one day build a more modest house on this lot, on the severed lot, and sell our 5-bedroom house on Adelaide Street North. So I don't have an exact answer, but that's a consideration for us.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate them.
You're very welcome.
Any further questions of the applicant? Sir, we appreciate you taking the time. Thank you. All right, is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? In support of this application? Anyone here online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application? Being none, committee, where are we? Ms. Archer?
It's printed.
All right, do I have a seconder? Mr. Erickson? All right, any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Your application is approved, sir. Now, we're certainly dealing with the last, certainly not the least. We've got file number D20-2024-115, and this is 24 Courtland Road, Geographic Township of Laxton. Ms. Evans, go ahead, please.
Thank you. The subject property is designated waterfront under the City of Kawartha Lakes official plan and is zoned limited service residential under the United Townships of Laxton, Digby, and Longford zoning bylaw 32-83. The subject property is located on the western shore of Shadow Lake and contains a single detached dwelling constructed in 1993, a shed, a cabin, and an additional residential unit, or ARU. The existing detached garage was converted to an ARU, which now provides additional habitable space on the property. And the purpose of the application is to recognize that ARU for the purpose of obtaining a building permit. Relief is required from section 18.1B of the zoning bylaw, which permits accessory structures in the interior side or rear yard. The existing ARU is located in the front yard. The photo on the left is of the ARU, and the photo on the right is the existing primary dwelling. The ARU complies with minimum front and interior side yard setbacks. There's a stand of mature vegetation between the ARU and the road, which provides visual screening. And the primary dwelling on the subject property is larger than the ARU, ensuring that it remains visually predominant. The property is approximately 7,689 square meters in size and contains ample amenity space in all yards. The Building and Septic Division has indicated they have no concerns regarding the proposed septic servicing for the ARU. Now, in most cases, to be eligible for an ARU, a property must abut a road that is assumed and maintained by the municipality, and Courtland Road is a private road. However, this particular zoning bylaw contains a pretty unique provision, being section 18.7, which provides that any lot which is in existence on or prior to the date of passing of the bylaw shall be exempt from requiring frontage on a public street for the purposes of development. And based on assessment maps that we have, the subject property has been in existence since at least 1979, predating the zoning bylaw. Through staff review of the zoning bylaw, it was determined that section 18.7 prevails, and the property is exempt from requiring frontage on a public street and is eligible for an ARU. No comments of concern were raised by any of these circulated agencies, and no comments were received from members of the public. Based on the contents of the report, staff acknowledges the application meets all 4 tests of a minor variance and respectfully recommends approval of the application subject to the conditions identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? All right, being none. Is the applicant here on, yes, sir. Come ahead, Mr. McCool. For the record, just give us your name again, sir, if you would.
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. My name is Joe McCool, KG Planners and Builders, and I'm representing John and Gail McCormick for this. Strictly here to answer questions. Although I would comment, this is the fastest I've ever seen. Committee, I'm going, oh, we're the last one. I'm going, I'm never going to have this heard. Record time.
Well, I was just thinking how good we are, but then I thought, well, maybe I'm not sure what that is.
I've been to a lot of these. This is the fastest one I've ever seen.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant? All right, well, as usual, another one of those quiet days. Yep, very good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone here online wishing to speak in support of this application? Support of the application? Guess there's no one here. Anyone online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Opposition to the application. Committee, where are we? Mr. Strangway?
As recommended by staff.
Do I have a seconder? Ms. Richardson. All right. Any further comments or questions with respect to the motion on the floor? Being none, all those in favor? And that carries. Yeah, I must admit that that moved around rather quickly today. All right. No consents. Other business. Anything from committee with respect to other business? Mr. Strangway.
Thank you. And following up what Mr. McCool said, I looked at the number of applications today, and I kind of guesstimated 3:30, 4 o'clock. Would I be correct in saying that our planners have, shall we say, given us more of a Reader's Digest version and not gone into as much detail? And I say this in a very positive way, in that we get the information, we get a chance to read through it and so on. And I believe what our planners are doing is hitting the high spots and not going through all of the detail. And I commend them for that. I think it's very efficient, and I think they're doing a great job. So that's my observation.
Actually, yeah, and I don't disagree. I'll ask maybe Director Barry to speak to that, but we can't shorten it too much, because we have folks out there that are listening and maybe wishing to object, as we do on occasion. So I guess I would ask you, Director Barry, yes, perhaps we have, and thank you very much, you're doing a fine job with that, but we can't shorten them up too much, correct?
Sure, Mr. Chair, thank you through you, and to the member, we'll take that praise and that compliment. Thank you. The planners do work very hard, and as you've probably heard us describe to you in the past, there's quite a lot of correspondence back and forth, communication with the applicants, with the owners, to ensure that sort of all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, so that by the time you're receiving the information, they're at least the attempt is, we strive for producing a product that is delivered in an efficient way. You've, most of you, maybe with the exclusion of Mr. Finn for the most part, have lived through some variety and variation and evolution in the Committee of Adjustment. You've seen, I think, us go from perhaps one extreme to another, from very descriptive and detailed and lengthy presentations and reports as well, to the opposite, when you were forced to listen to me for a period where we really streamlined matters. And thank you again. I won't ever stop thanking you for that period of time and your grace. So it's a bit of finding the sweet spot to ensure that you've got the information that you need to make the decision. And we know you read the reports, and we appreciate that, and that your questions are based on either clarifications that you need or new information that you learned from hearing the presentation or any comments that are made from the public. So again, you may continue to see a little bit of variety in the presentations, but definitely efficiency and respecting your time as volunteers, but still doing the customer service that we need to is where we aim to be. There is a element too of experience that comes with presenting and efficiency, and you will again see some variety when we are training or onboarding new planners to join the committee, because we trust you understand that's also a learning process for staff as well, to get that comfort and confidence to get to the point of smoothly and efficiently presenting the information. Member Strangway, next time I'll just say thank you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because I think, well, every committee member, I'm sure, goes through these applications, and you sort of underline what you consider are the hot spots, if you want to call it that, or the important points. And without doubt, you're hitting most that I have anyway, so I'm sure that's probably the case with the committee as well. So as I've said before, you guys do a great job, and we appreciate that, because it makes our job easier. There's no question. Anything? Yes, Ms. Archer.
Is it just a coincidence that we didn't happen to have any problems and we didn't have a building official with us today?
Yeah. Something else that Charlotte and I do here. It used to be that if we had a good number of members of the public, which we had today, that we would go down there, and thank you, Charlotte. Charlotte did an excellent job trying to line things up so that we could maybe pull the folks that are here in first. But then we've discussed this over time, and we've tried to balance, is the folks that are sitting here, is their time really any more important than the folks who are sitting out there waiting to speak? So it's usually a fair good balance. So we've decided we're not going to adjust or amend the agenda. Let's just deal with it as it comes, because I think we're probably going to be living with this virtual setup, well into the future. So, or it may be the only thing in the future, who knows? So we're not, as I say, we'll deal with the agenda as it, unless we've got one person sitting there, and then that makes common sense to go and talk to them. Yes. We can't hear you, but go ahead. I'm interested in what you might have to say.
I'm very sorry. I just, I don't know if you heard what I said before, just that I was here waiting, but then like I had a child at home who I picked up for a head injury earlier. So I went home to check on him. I know this is kind of a strange case. And then I didn't realize I needed a special code to be able to be on Zoom. So I wasn't able to speak. So I did rush back here, but I just missed my case, the property concern that I had, which was for 88 Pottinger. So.
Okay. Suggest to you, if you have comments or questions, speak to the planner involved in that application, and hopefully they can address any concerns you may have had or what it is you might want to say. Okay? All right. Mr. Erickson.
She kind of asked the same, what I was thinking. Can somebody come online, not register with the control, listen in, and just someone from the general public, and then come up with a question? Would they be recognized as being online?
The answer is probably yes. And don't forget, this is on YouTube. So whoever wishes to sit in can. And I'll ask the director, but I'm sure that if someone were to come on there and wish to speak to it, that we would allow that. I would. Director, you got any comments there?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the question limited to sort of the timing around when the member who's zoomed in, so to speak, to ask a question after the matter has been dealt with by the committee? I just wasn't exactly clear on the question. And then especially with the comments, Mr. Chair, that you provided for additional context, if we could just maybe ask for the question again.
Yeah, well, I think my understanding, if during the process of the application, someone who hasn't mentioned that they were interested are listening and then decide, oh, I've got a question about that, and I'm saying yes, that I would.
Absolutely. That's the purpose of the public meeting. There's no need to register as a deputant ahead of time. There are protocols for doing that for other types of meetings, but for a public meeting, which is a statutory requirement under the Planning Act, there is no requirement to register ahead of time, and the public can engage with the committee during the public meeting.
Yeah.
So this resident who said she wanted to possibly get on Zoom but needed a special code, she was locked out. couldn't get back here in time, but couldn't get on air online either.
Well, and that's why I'm suggesting if they have issues, we've dealt with the process, so I'm not going to go into something after the fact, but if they wish to speak to the planner, they can at least have on record with the planner questions they may have had. But there's going to be glitches just because of the system that we know. It's the nature of the environment that we work in right now, is that there's always going to be glitches, and how we deal with them, I guess it'll be a decision at the time as to how we handle it. So, did I see your hand, Betty? Sandra, go ahead.
I'm wondering, is there anything that can be done about the audio? I felt really bad that I could not understand that one gentleman.
I wasn't going to ask him to repeat because I'm not convinced that it would have helped any. So that's why I went to Mr. Shahid and asked him if is there any issue there he may have picked up on that we could speak to. But we're going to get that all the time. Not all the time, but we're going to get issues where it's very difficult, and we're just going to have to deal with it as best we can. Because asking a person to repeat, it just all it does is delay, because it's not going to be any better. Anything further? Anything further from staff? Gosh, one of those days, eh? All right. Well, the next meeting will be on Thursday, February the 27th, 1 p.m. in the council chambers. Motion to adjourn. Mr. Finn, seconder. Mr. Strangway. All those in favor? And that carries. Thank you.